Well, hold on to your hats, folks. This is it. One of my dream interviews. Seth Godin. This episode of the ProGuide starts now. Well, welcome back to this episode of the ProGuide. I cannot tell you how excited I am that you're going to get to hear this interview. Seth Godin is the author of 18 books that have been bestsellers around the world and have been translated into more than 35 languages. If you've ever read Tribes or Linchpin or his latest best-selling book, What to Do When It's Your Turn, or even ever Googled the name Seth, then chances are you've encountered this man's work. Seth, it is fantastic to have you with us today.
Well, thanks. It's a privilege.
Well, Seth, I think one of the areas of your platform that really resonate with people is their desire to want to do meaningful work. I mean, I believe that most people would want to do meaningful work, and there's this resistance that we deal with, and then there's this thing that you call the lizard brain that you talk about. And so explain a little bit maybe what the lizard brain is and how we overcome this resistance.
Well, I will preface this by saying that most people do not want to do meaningful work. I don't think anyone accidentally ends up hiding. I think we hide on purpose. We would like to do meaningful work at some level, except that we're not sure we want to pay the price. And I think we have to start there. My friend Steve Pressfield has coined the term resistance. He doesn't call it the resistance. I do. And it is the voice of the lizard brain. The lizard brain is our amygdala, the little tiny almond-shaped part of our brain that is responsible for fear and anger, revenge, and sex. It is right next to our brainstem. It is super powerful. It can flood our brain with chemicals 2 seconds faster than the rest of our brain can wake up and decide to do something meaningful. And so when the phone rings and it's your boss's phone number on caller ID, you don't say to yourself, oh, good, here's that raise I was expecting. They finally realized how good I am. You say, oh, my God, they found out that mistake I made. I'm in trouble. I'm going to lose my job. The economy's terrible. I'll never get another job. I'll never get a reference. I'll be unemployed. I'll be homeless. I'll be dead. And we go from ring, ring to I'll be dead. We can show this in 0.3 seconds. And that voice, the chemicals that are being flooded in our brains, is where writer's block comes from. And it's where so much procrastination comes from. Because if you can avoid doing something meaningful, you can probably avoid getting in trouble. And thus the amygdala can calmly sit back. It's when we start doing something that might not work that our amygdala wakes up, that our lizard brain starts freaking out, that the resistance shows up.
What is it that separates us from our amygdala, and how do we overcome this resistance?
Well, I'm not sure you can overcome the resistance. Mm-hmm. I think that what you can do is accept the fact that there is fear and then dance with it. And it's the people who want to overcome it, who view it as a battle, that I think are finding a yet another, even more clever way to hide. Because we say to ourselves, if I can just set up one more system, just install my standing desk and this app and this other thing, and then finally the fear will go away, there's always one more way for the fear to come back. And if we need the fear to go away before we do meaningful work, we never will.
Now, you've introduced this idea years ago of just shipping it. And, there's the desire to be perfect. There's the desire to make sure that everything is exactly the way it should be before we move forward with the meaningful work. Do you have any pointers or any words of advice for getting people to just take action, just do it?
Well, I'm really glad you brought this up because I never said that. And I need to clarify it because this is the resistance again persuading people that I said, what the hell, ship sloppy stuff, and then you can move on because that gives us yet another way out. That's not what I said. What I said, and I talk about this in my new book, is merely ship it. And the difference between just and merely is a semantic difference that's essential because what has happened in our vocabulary is just means what the hell. Merely means only ship it. Ship it without dialogue. Ship it without fretting. Ship it without distracting yourself or installing another productivity tool. Merely do this work. It's a mindfulness commentary. It's a commentary on accepting the fact that doing this work will make you uncomfortable. Do not engage with that discomfort. Do not try to conquer that discomfort. Merely do this work.
I love it. I love it. The semantics, and it makes a difference. You know, I've always been interested about how transferable these ideas could be to children. Why do you think we don't? We do struggle with the lizard brain, but it seems like children maybe aren't intelligent enough to construct the elaborate traps that we construct. What, if anything, do you think society or we ourselves could teach children so that they grow up with less of a struggle, or is there hope of that?
Well, the reason that kids get stuck on this is because their parents are stuck on this. And I give parents plenty of examples of this, but one of my favorite ones is simple, which is if you want to raise kids that are going to explore the edges, then you're not allowed to scold them for trying a new thing and doing poorly at it. That we say we want our kids to be problem solvers, but we also want them to get straight A's, get 2,400 on the SATs, and get into a famous college. Can't have it both ways. So if you want to raise free-range kids, if you want to raise kids who ask difficult questions, if you want to raise kids who come up with clever answers, you cannot also demand that they comply with authority figures merely because it is convenient for you in this record for them to be doing that. Can't have it both ways. And so I feel really strongly about the fact that kids grow up the way kids are growing up because we are pushing them to do so.
Seth, I'm really fascinated by your story. I think it's so recursive and yet unique that you seem to have a career that inspires others to inspire others with their work. And yet, was this something that you set out to do? I mean, is there a day where you're like, you know what? I think this is what I should be doing.
Well, I've been a teacher for a really long time, and I have taught inside recognized institutions like NYU, but primarily outside. And for me, the primary motivation is watching people grow. I'm hooked on that. And, the legacy I hope to leave is not who did I change, but who did the people I change. Because that work of creating enough impact and enough of a difference that people want to pass it on is in fact recursive. And I think that this is too important for me to say I want to have a monopoly on it. I like it when people steal my ideas. I don't need them to give me credit. I just want to see the right change happen in the world.
When you're struggling or have struggled in the past with the lizard brain, honestly, I identify with the noble. It is very noble to want to see others inspire others. Is that where you began in terms of motivation?
Well, I think that part of what it is to teach is to care that the teaching is working. And so, my first teaching was at a summer camp north of Toronto where I taught 12-year-olds how to pilot a canoe, a 16-foot, 80-pound canoe all by themselves. And what I found is that canoeing is not important, but the act of piloting a vehicle by yourself is very important. And that once you can teach a kid to do that, it changes everything for them for years to come. And so I saw what the fear was capable of doing to people, and that's when I began my quest of trying to help extinguish that fear.
When you, Seth Godin, are defeating, your lizard brain, when you're at your best and creating meaningful work, I mean, when you're vulnerable and unique and alive, are there any common things that you say to yourself, any decisions that you kind of make repeatedly to get yourself back into that empowered state if you ever leave it?
Here at Seth Godin's shop, which doesn't have nearly as great a name, we don't believe in checklists or systems or putting everything into a place so that you get the peace of mind of knowing that it is in one. I want to not wear a raincoat, but to get wet. But more and more, we are seeing in our culture and our society value accruing to people who are willing to get wet. And I think that that's a choice. So we figure out not how to get more done, but how to have these moments of mindfulness, of emptiness. As Neil Gaiman says, when he knows it's time to create, he establishes an environment where he's bored. Because when he's bored, a book comes out of him. And if he's busy optimizing to answer his incoming and get the maximum amount done, nothing happens because he's become a cog in an industrial system. So I think it's different strokes for different folks depending on what kind of work you are seeking to do in that moment.
In the book, All Marketers Are Liars, we talk about how we tell stories to ourselves and each other's, and you've told us a little bit of yours so far. And I've always been so impressed by the massive library of marketing anecdotes, fables, and stories that you choose to tell to inspire other people. And as granular and detailed as you're willing to get, how do you personally find and curate stuff that you're using for your speaking in books? Do you look for these stories, or do they come and find you?
If you talk to somebody who works in a nuclear power plant or the fashion industry or captaining a boat, and you say, "What do you think of this ship?" They'll say, "Well, the ropes are coiled in the wrong direction. They're counterclockwise, not clockwise." Or they'll say, "The third dial from the left is mirror image of where it's supposed to be," or whatever. You learn to notice things if you decide to notice things. And I decided a long time ago to notice things. I am stunned at the people who are so seduced by our industrial economy that they have chosen not to notice things. If something is going on and you can't understand why, if you can't understand how Amanda Palmer raised $1.2 million on Kickstarter in 1 month, if you can't understand why Barnes & Noble stock is down, if you can't understand why letterpress or vinyl is making a resurgence, you should ask yourself why, and then you will notice. And I am amazed that people look to me as someone who is good at this, because I don't think I'm that good at it. I just think I decided, and that most people haven't.
As other people become more inspired, and hopefully so, to play on the fringes, to do meaningful work, to push out on the edges there, is there a challenge that you see that could be next? So industrialization, of course, was kind of the story of the last 100 years or so. It seems like doing meaningful, creative, unique work is where we're headed next. Do you have any guesses? And I'm definitely not asking you to write it in stone, of course, but any indications or inklings where the next wave could lead us?
Well, here's the thing. This is the next wave. This is the next big thing. And I think that we have to confront the lizard that is telling us that true early adopters need to know the next thing because we missed the last one. The fact is, this is the next one for a really long time to come. And you haven't missed it. It's the first inning. It's the car industry in 1928. In 1928, there were more than 2,000 car companies in the United States. It would be easy to look at that era and say, all right, well, we're done with that. The industrial age is over. What's new? But it took 70 years for that to actually be over. So, 8 years ago, I wrote a blog post about Imagine a Future. Imagine a future where everyone has an internet connection, where you can store a photo online for free, where hard drives are bigger than we can ever imagine, and 10 other things that all happened. And The fact that they all happened doesn't change the fact that these are very, very early days. And we need to do is say, even if you're 70 or 80 years old, they built this system not so I could look at cat videos, but so that I could connect and so that I could be trusted. What work will I do so that people will choose to connect with me? What actions will I take so that people will choose to trust me? Because if you can figure out how to be trusted, you are 90% of the way to being connected and making a difference.
What would massive success look like for you? What is the story that you hope to tell with the larger story of life? And when people sum up your life, what story do you hope that they tell?
I'm not even close to wanting to keep track of my eulogy just yet. I think that if we could trick ourselves into doing important work, it doesn't really matter what trick we use. And so write your eulogy, not your resume trick is a fine one because it helps people wake up to the fact that they've been a cog for too long. For me, I think it's more about at the end of every hour or at the end of every day, I get to ask myself, is that it? And on a good day, I can say, yeah, that's it.
Well, there's a lot of your work is so fantastically meaningful and inspiring us to be productive and become the best versions of ourselves. How can people engage with you or your work, or what way can they get up with you and what you're up to?
I don't do any coaching or advising or investing or consulting, but what I do is produce a blog post every single day and have for many, many years. If you type Seth into your favorite search engine, there it is. And I've written 18 books. My new one is illustrated and fun and might even make you cry. It's called What to Do When It's Your Turn.
And we can find that at yourturn.link. Awesome. A brilliant mind, Seth Godin. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. And that was this episode of the Pro Guide. Learn from leaders so you can level up your life.